For 10 years, Joe chased a music career, touring the country, playing in a band, even landing a record deal. Watching friends from the Plain White T's make it big only fueled the dream further, but it didn't work out. So he and his wife packed up and moved to California to start over. He landed a corporate marketing job, and on paper, it looked like the dream. It was a steady paycheck, a nice life in California. In reality, it was slowly breaking him. He was so stressed, his own dermatologist confirmed he was losing hair on his legs just from anxiety alone. But one conversation changed everything. A friend's father-in-law told him the simplest advice: build a business around something you actually love. For Joe, that was food. His first idea was massive, 50-page concept called Meatball Republic. It never got off the ground. But when a real estate deal fell through and left him with a tiny over-the-counter space in Southside Chicago, Joe scraped the plan in just a few days and pivoted to something totally different: a chicken sandwich shop. He sold his California home, moved his pregnant wife and toddler into his in-laws' basement, and bet everything, including his mother's life savings, on the idea. I'm Ryan Atkinson, and you're listening to the UpFlip Podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs to hear their advice on how you can start a business too. I am so excited to welcome Joe Fontana to the podcast to talk about all things Fry the Coop, that now has over 10 locations, over 200 employees, and more than $1 million a month in revenue. So Joe, thank you so much. So excited to have you on today.
Ryan, this is awesome. You nailed that. I'm like flabbergasted over here. Thanks for having me on.
That was wordy, but we got through it. But I am so excited to have you on. But let's talk about Fry the Coop. Let's first lay the foundation for our listeners. If they're hearing about Joe Fontana for the first time, give them the high level. What do you do? What is Fry the Coop?
Yep. My name is Joe Fontana. I am the founder, owner of Fry the Coop. We are a fast casual chain that specializes in beef tallow, fried chicken sandwiches. We got 10 locations around the Chicagoland area. Building number 11 right now, and we're just delivering happiness to the Chicagoland area, one chicken sandwich at a time.
One chicken sandwich at a time. I love that. And what are you guys doing in revenue? Because obviously when I hear soon to be 11 locations, like this isn't a small operation anymore. What are you guys doing in revenue?
Yeah, we are we're on track to do $15 million this year in sales, which is awesome. And you know what I love about that is that only 1% of small businesses will ever get to $10 million and more in revenue a year. And this will be our 5th year in the row over 10 million.
Wow, that is amazing. We're going to dive in the blueprint of like exactly how a listener can do something similar. Before we do that, let's really rewind the clock. Tell us about like this music career, the passion for music, and like what you were wanting to do, because that really lays the foundation for $15 million a year in revenue.
Oh man, well, I was a little punk rocker growing up. Went to all the punk shows back in the day in Chicago, and my friends, that's kind of all my friends, we all got together. We loved punk music, and all my friends were musicians. And then their friends were musicians. And so before we knew it, a lot of my high school years were just playing shows with my band and then our friends' bands. And we'd go from here to there and parties. And I just like absolutely loved the whole scene, the idea of, being a rock star. And then you kind of mentioned it a little bit, in my 20s, our friends who were in the Plain White T's, we all grew up together and, we started seeing their success. And so, before you know it, and they had toured 5 years aggressively, and then they got signed to a record label, and Hey There Delilah, which went number 1 for like a month in a row. It just, you still hear it constantly in elevators and, stores, on the radio. But, we saw them playing arenas and they were just crushing.
So
then it kind of gave us the hope, like we could do it too, It's kind of cool.
That is so cool. I've actually seen the Plain White T's in a concert. They were in like small town Iowa. They were fun to see there. But so how did music get into corporate then? So you left the music world to go into the corporate role. What were you doing with that?
Well, I think, what's funny about like being in a band, you have to promote your stuff. You have to promote all like the shows coming up. You have to create your brand, the brand image. There's like so many things you learn being in a band that like apply to it. But basically, we screwed up. We decided for our second album, we were going to rent a house. We were going to build a recording studio in the basement. We were going to do that for 1 year. And then we were going to continue to like tour after that. Well, 1 year turned into 2 turned into 3. Next thing you know, this becomes like the party house, and every bar that gets let out, after every show, it's just like, go back to the Michael Lane house. That was the name of the band. And for 4 years, we did way too much partying. And that kind of like,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And we had so much fun. but that fun came in lieu of like being successful because we were so focused on like party, and that kind of bit us in the ass. So I was bartending part time. Bartending was a great job to like, bartend and play in the band because it gave me the flexibility to do that. And when I turned 28 years old, I kind of, it was kind of like time to get done with playing shows and partying till 5 in the morning. I saw the sun come up like every day for years, so it's like, all right.
That's crazy,
Yeah,
Joe.
it was a long time. So then my mom was the one who, I wasn't living at home. I was supporting myself and whatnot, but she was like, hey, like you got to get a real job. Like you can't bartend and play shows, for the rest of your life. And I was like, well, that's what I want to do, So yeah, come on, mom. So she kind of pushed me into like, hey, you got to get a real job. Before you know it, I was like putting on a suit and tie in an office. And yeah, I hated it, but the big change.
I was gonna say, talk about a complete like 180 in the life. But okay, take us to the origin story of Fry the Coop then. Take us back to like the moment where like the seed was planted, like, okay, let's start like a chicken shop.
Yeah, so basically I worked corporate for 6 years and they were still like mom and pop smaller businesses, but I just could not like, the whole sitting in front of a computer, it just wasn't for me. And so I did some soul searching, and you kind of mentioned it. I got some advice from my friend's father-in-law, and this was in lieu too of I wasn't making any money. So that was another kind of like problem where I'm like not making cash, and my wife's pregnant now at this point. I'm like, I got to, figure out how to support a family. So that was like the moment when it was like, all right, you got to do something you love and you got to open up a business. Those were like the impotence of like, hey, I'm going to start something. But my original concept was going to be meatballs. I came up with an idea for Meatball Republic because I'm Italian. I grew up with my grandma making meatballs and chicken cutlets. And, I was
Oh,
always in
sounds
the
so
kitchen
good.
with her. Yeah, 100%. One thing led to another with the Meatball Republic of me trying to open up that concept. It didn't end up coming to fruition. A lease I signed had fell through. And so while I was trying to find a new spot for the Meatball Republic, I landed on this location, our first store. It wasn't right for the Meatball Republic. So I had to pivot the concept, and I would happen to be addicted to these chicken sandwiches that you couldn't get anywhere. I also lived by an In-N-Out burger. So I was like, okay, this location is not going to be right for Meatball Republic, but maybe I can do something else. And then I kind of paired like, oh, well, I love these chicken sandwiches. I love the In-N-Out simple menu. And I was like, let me write up a quick business plan. And that's when I was like, oh, this is a hit. Like it dawned on me. There was like a light bulb moment where I was like, this is such a cool concept. I don't care where you put it. It's a hit on every corner. And born was Fry the Coop.
Born was Fry the Coop. So yeah, I absolutely love that because you're combining like two passions, like do something you love and you love food. So we alluded in the opener there that it was about a $60,000 so like startup costs or upfront investment here. What did like that investment go to? And like tell a story about like how you got the $60,000 as well.
Yeah, 100%. And this is what I recommend. There's a book called The Lean Startup, and it basically is about, you start with version 1.0 and you get customer feedback, and then you release version 1.1. You don't start with version 9, and like a version 9.8, and because it takes a lot of investment. So we found a second generation restaurant. It was a restaurant that opened and closed within 8 months. And so then that's the way I was able to go in for such little cash. I had my friend who owned the building, they were about to lose it. They had a real estate deal and they were going to give me some basically TI money, or like they call it tenant improvement money, which was going to be about 40,000. It was actually supposed to be the whole 60 to 80,000. We didn't know how much we needed or I needed, but basically, I mean, I went in with $0, got the keys to this place, just started painting and cleaning stuff and pulling equipment out and throwing it away. So I was doing it for almost nothing. I find out the money was going to fall through. They had some tax thing that they had sold the building and they were going to use some of the cash from the building sale to kind of help me with the money, the TI money. Well, it got held up in some escrow account for some tax hiccup. And so they called me up. They're like, hey, the money we were going to give you, we don't have it yet. And I was like, wait, what? But I need to open, So I called my mom. My mom is not rich at all. My parents are, they're very blue collar. They've done phenomenal for themselves and even better now. But, going back now a decade ago, I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, how much money do you have to your name? She's like, I got $21,000. I was like, great. I need all of it. And she's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
And to my mom's credit, she was like, you got it. I believe in you. I trust you. Boom. She went to the bank the next day, wired me 21 grand. So I was able to use that to kind of get most of the stuff going. Then the money from that tax thing freed up. So then I got another 40 grand from my guy. So that was like the 60,000. And yeah, sure enough, I was able to open up the doors. We leased equipment too. That was the other thing. I got some company, which by the way, don't ever lease restaurant equipment. For $17,000 of equipment, it took me 5 years to pay it off. And I ended up paying 34 grand for all the equipment. So it was
Oh
like double.
no.
Like in the interest, that's kind of how they make their money, right? So it helped me out in that pinch. But if I could go back, I would have never done that again. I would have like put the money on a credit card and probably paid it off sooner. You can't pay those leases off. They don't let you pay them off quickly. That's like they want you to be in that 5-year period so they can get their interest. So that was all the startup funds. And I'm so proud to say that I was able to pay that back every dollar in 6 months, which was awesome.
Dude, that's so nuts.
Are you ready to launch, grow, and scale a business? Inside the UpFlip Academy, you'll get a complete roadmap to shortcut your success with 25 plus step-by-step programs taught by active business owners, not gurus, who share their step-by-step blueprints, plus ongoing live workshops, skills training, a business idea database, and community to share resources and celebrate your wins. Click the link in the description below to join the UpFlip Academy today and start surrounding yourself with the people and tools that can change everything for your business.
Take me to like the conversation of like with your mom, because that is like, that's not an easy conversation. Be like, I mean, your mom supported you right off the bat there, but like, were you nervous making that phone call? Was she nervous at all wiring you like 21,000? Like, I love that's like the power of like a supportive mother. Like it'll just bring you so far. But like, yeah, tell us all like that conversation, because that to me would have my stomach's like doing flips there.
Well, I think too, I've never been a person to borrow money from anybody. So like that wasn't like the 30th time I asked my mom for money. This was maybe like the second time in my life, So it was kind of like, hey, I'm in a pinch, like I need your help. And I think there's something too about when you are using the startup capital, when you borrow it from your parents, your best friend, somebody you love, your grandparents or something. I mean, there is like a deep personal connection where like you feel like indebted to. Like if some company in, New York gave me cash, it's like I don't care about them. I'll file for bankruptcy and like see you later, But when you borrow those initial, startup funds from, your parents, like you really want to make sure they get those dollars back. So just asking my mom, I wasn't nervous about it. It was just more like, hey, can you do this? Like, are you in a place to do it? And she was like, yeah, sure. She's like, I'm happy to. So yeah, my mom was really, really great about it. And I love that I was able to pay her back,
Well, let's talk about some growth levers here, because now you guys are close to doing like $15 million this year. You guys are on track to do that. You guys are opening your 11th location, which is so nuts. So people are probably sitting there wondering, okay, like how the heck did you do this? But I'm not going to ask the big question of how'd you go from 0 to 15 million, because there is way too much there. But 0 to like 1 million, that's a little bit smaller. Obviously, there are ups and downs along that way. What were some like the levers you guys pulled? And like, what are some of those keys like to get like your first $1 million in the restaurant business?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it, unfortunately, has to do with marketing because, you could have the best product in the world, you can have the best service. And if nobody knows about it, like even if you have a good location, like it is really hard to make it unless you're good at the marketing piece. And this is kind of funny, tying it back to my friends in the Plain White Tees. They had their Hey There Delilah song. They played it live for 5 years, every night. They toured for 11 months of the year. And that did not get the recognition until they signed to a record label. And then it got on the radio and became a #1 hit. So they have this #1 hit song they're playing every day. And it never became a #1 until it got the marketing and promotion behind it. Where I'm going with all this is I hired a publicist. I had studied restaurateurs in New York City and they all hired publicists. I couldn't wrap my brain around like, I thought a publicist was for somebody who was like a celebrity, like why does a restaurant need a publicist? But I learned that these New York restaurateurs, the rents are so high, competition is so cutthroat that they need to get on the Food Network. They need to go on the Today Show. They need to get that exposure to get people in the door. And then I talked to a friend who owns a really popular restaurant, like a Michelin star in Chicago. He's a part owner. And I asked him, I go, how have you guys been so successful? And I thought he was going to say, oh, well, we have this Michelin star chef and we have all this. He credits the publicist. I was like, wait, what? And he was like, well, we get written up a lot. And that's how we're like, they do these big 16 course dinners and, it's like
Wow.
crazy expensive. And I thought he was going to list about how great the food was. I thought he was going to go on and on about what they do. And he literally, without hesitation, credited the publicist to their success. And I was like, geez, what? I'm like, all right. So after learning about these New York guys, and then my friend telling me about this, but their restaurant, I started reaching out to publicists. And this is, by the way, we're 3 months into opening the restaurant. I'm in the south side suburbs of Chicago, and I basically can barely pay for our, food costs, our labor, our chef that we hired. So this was a real leap of faith to jump off the cliff and just hire a publicist and kind of hope that it worked to, start getting some cash in the door.
Yeah. So what were the results of that? Because you did it, I think, 3 months in. Did you notice it right away? What were some of the placements? And tell us about that. Because I think that's a really interesting tidbit, especially for the restaurant industry there.
And you can do it for any business, by the way. Hiring a publicist is a great move no matter what you're in. And I think you have to have the right publicist. So that's a key. And then you have to be ready for it. So it's once they open the floodgates and start promoting, you need to be ready. And by the way, we were not ready. And so we had a lot of angry customers after that. But I was trying to get on TV. I was emailing these producers. I would find out who they are. I'm cold calling. I'm sending DMs on Instagram. Crickets. No one's replying to me. The week we hired the publicist, she had booked me on WGN for a national segment. And then and then one of the biggest food influencers in Chicago at the time, a TV guy named Steve Dolinsky, the Hungry Hound, he had a thing on ABC Chicago. And so within a week of hiring her, I was booked on WGN, and then I got booked on ABC. And then right after that, the Hungry Hound reached out, brought a camera crew, and did a feature on us. So after those 3 segments aired, I had to hire about 25 people overnight. I mean, it was
wow.
bonkers. We could not keep up.
There's how you get your first million for anyone that wants to start a restaurant business. I love that. But okay, let's kind of graduate from the 1 million to that 2 to 5 million dollar range. What are some of the key things in this range? I'm really curious. Is it operationally you need to be excellent? Is it still have some amazing marketing, or from the $2 to $5 million range, what are some of the most important things a restaurant needs to get right?
I think it was consistency was one of the things. So we got over the hump where we were able to keep up with the demand that was coming in the door. I opened up the second location about 14 months later, and then we'd open up the third location and the fourth location. And I think that's kind of when we went from 1 million to kind of the over 5 million. We got up to 6.7 million, I think, in the 4 years. So it was opening up multiple locations, because now I got multiple streams of income coming in. The other thing was the consistency was so key. We worked really, really hard, making sure that at restaurant A was exactly like restaurant B and C and D. And so anyone who came into any one of the restaurants that said they'd been to the other ones, I drilled them. I wanted feedback cards, what's different? What do you notice? What do you like? What's the same? And we just kept kind of getting the report that it was consistent. Oh, this tastes exactly from over there. Consistency is really, really key in your product. And then, we went all in on social media. The publicist was still doing her thing. So we were getting written up in all these different magazines, newspaper articles. I was going on TV, every couple months I was doing segments here and there. So I think it was a combination of all those. And then the systems and processes to actually have that. KPIs is something we always focused on. And in the restaurant business, it's your labor and your cost of goods sold. So we've monitored those like a hawk. The other thing we got really into is training our team. We did these monthly meetings where we'd bring everyone together and just constantly training, making customer service the number one. I always tell our team, what business are we in? We're in the happiness business, and we're not in the restaurant business. We're in the people business. And so I really made our North Star hey, great service is number one by a long shot. And I always used to say, there's a thing with vanilla ice cream and chocolate ice cream in terms of sales. So vanilla and chocolate ice cream outsell every other ice cream on the planet by a long shot. But the crazy part is vanilla ice cream outsells chocolate by 5 miles. Like if this is all ice cream sales and this is chocolate, vanilla is like in the clouds. And so I would say like
Wow.
vanilla ice cream is our customer service. That's how good the service has to be. And I think like when you add all that in, together, that's how we kept doubling revenue year after year.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because your answer from like 0 to 1 million was like get a publicist. Your answer from like 2 to 5 was like KPIs, like consistency.
Yeah.
Like it just sounds like for you, did it feel like more mature of a business once you like got to that $5 million range? I mean, so much like has to change, obviously, from going from 1 to 5. That's 5x in the business there. So like, what were some of the biggest things you saw from yourself as well from the business from like 5 million to 1?
I think like it went so fast and I think it was it didn't feel because I think with the 1 to 5 million, I still had my hands in on everything. And so I knew everyone's name in the company. I would go into any restaurant, I knew everybody, I knew all the drama, I knew everything going on. It was really more from 5 to 10 million that was a bigger like, oh, this is like a real company and I need to like have some more HR policies and like there's like litigation and there's like more like serious things that happen where you're like, oh, this isn't me just like running around like making chicken sandwiches anymore. Like we need to actually like document this stuff. We need like real software. We need to have like serious meetings. We need to bring in real accountants. Like, so that was the change, I think, after that point. And every business is different, in the restaurant business, going from that like 5 stores to 10 stores was really a whoa, okay, we're like a real company now.
Once you start not knowing everyone in the company, I feel like that's when you like really graduate to like a whole new level. For anyone that is like listening now, like what advice can you tell them to like get to 5 million like as quick as possible? Is like get a publicist, have great marketing. Like what is your advice for someone to get to that $5 million range? And we're gonna talk about that $5+ million range a little bit more here.
I think having a plan, right? So our goal has always been at first there was 15 stores, then kind of real quickly we realized like that wasn't going to do it. So we put the audacious goal at 75 locations, about a $200 million a year business. So like in my brain, I'm thinking way higher than, 5
That's
million.
good.
I'm thinking, how do we get to 200 million a year? And so I think like when you kind of think like that, you're not like, oh, like 5 million is going to make it. 5 million was like just the base. But also too, I really believe you have to work backwards. So like, okay, with me, I was like, all right, if each restaurant could do 2 million a year, how many restaurants do we need to get to that 200 million, that kind of mentality. Whatever your business is doing, what does 5 million look like? And then break that down. Well, I need this many phone calls. I need this many leads. I need this many customers. And so I think like start at that number and then work backwards. And then that can kind of feed into like how you get there.
The reverse engineering of like metrics is like, I think one of the best advice entrepreneurs can give other entrepreneurs is like, if you can know your numbers down, like you can just literally reverse engineer to like get to like where you want to do. So I love that. But let's now go to that $5 to $10 million range. I was hearing, you mean you have HR policies, you've got accountants, you've got big meetings there. What were some of the big steps that you had to take along the way from that 5 to 10 beyond, the back end of like HR and all the boring stuff of accountants? What were some of the big like marketing, like growth things you guys had to do?
Well, I think it was, you have to hire the correct people on the team, and go through that whole process. You need more senior level people. We call our office the support team. And so like we had to like really kind of hone in on what does our support team look like? And then how do we actually support the stores to actually like get them to like honing in so many systems and processes. And don't let me think like I'm on some high horse that we've already figured it out. We are still like knee deep in the trenches, like digging and trying to create those systems. And every time, there's like a situation that happens that we're like, oh, we need a system for that. And so just as you go, it's like documenting your systems, getting them into one source. We go all in on Google Drive. And so we have Google Docs for like everything with our systems, processes, and then the trainings too. I mean, there's so many aspects of training. When you have 200 employees and they're all in 10 different locations, and now for us, it's 12 different locations with our commissary and our office, it's like, how do you muse your vision onto other people when you don't see them,
That's hard.
It is really hard. Like they said, how do you run a great restaurant? It's like, if you can run it when you're never there, like a great restaurant, like that's like how a great restaurant should function is when the owner is technically not present and it still functions and like does what it's supposed to do, which is make people happy and create a place that create memories. So I really think there's so many categories of constantly pushing on the marketing, constantly pushing on the training, constantly making sure your HR is tight. The finance is another big category that your finance have to be so tight. That's how most businesses don't make it to 10 million in revenue, is they don't take how serious it is to have your
Really?
finances be lock, stock, and smoking barrels. And here's the three categories I think that every business needs is you have to have great service being your number one thing, a great product, and great financials. If you can handle and have those three categories be so tight, you will always be successful. But if one of those pillars fails, you don't have a great product, you don't have great service, you don't have great financials, you're going to run out of business soon.
Wait, that is super interesting. I love the financials piece. We haven't heard that before there. So for like that, like what are, I mean, is it, I'm assuming it's not as simple as this, but is it as simple as like labor and like cost of goods sold? Or like when you get to that $10 million range, like what is the key financials? Or even at the $5 million range, like what are you looking at every day?
Well, I think the whole thing is like having accurate and timely financials. And then you can use your financials to understand what you need to correct in the business. Because I love finance from a standpoint where you can hand your P&L to a CFO in Australia who's never been to America before. They don't know your business at all, and they can review your P&L statement and they can tell you all the problems wrong with your business. And so like the numbers never lie, and so they have to be accurate. You have to have all your source documents. It is a ton of work, by the way. I think that's why a lot of companies, get behind on this, because like it's a lot of effort. A source document, meaning like an invoice, a receipt, like they all have to get into one system and they all have to be analyzed. And to the point where like you might have an invoice that has multiple line items on it, but each line item needs to be GL'd, put on a journal entry to a different general ledger. So that sense of detail going through each invoice with a fine-tooth comb, is really, really important. In restaurants, cost of goods sold is such a huge portion of it. I heard this advice the other day, and if you have a business with cost of goods sold is a high percentage in your P&L, you need to have someone dedicated to just doing your cost of goods sold. Like that's their only job. Like they're the senior director of cost of goods sold in the business, because, you might overpay on something, and vendors, they want to make money and they want to make margin. So they might be selling you a product that, you start off paying $20 a case. Then before you know it, it's 22, then it's 30. Then, a
Next thing
couple
you
years
know.
go by. Yeah, you're paying $40 a case. When, if you didn't really pay attention to it, you might be like, wait a minute, we're paying double for the same product for the case. Well, I can still get it, over here for 22. So knowing how you can comb through your P&Ls and make sure that it is so lock stock. I mean, and here's a good story. When we were starting, I had a vendor who just dropped off invoices. There was a once a week for disposables, and they would drop off these invoices. And throughout 6 months, I missed 6 invoices that didn't get paid because the driver, the delivery guy, forgot to leave the invoice when he left. So he just took them with him. So here's me. I'm thinking that I'm all caught up. I would pay every week. I would pay our stuff, and I missed out on these 6 invoices, 6 different separate weeks throughout this 6-month period. Well, at the end of the year, my rep calls me up and she's like, hey, do you want to clear your balance before the end of the year? And I was like, what balance?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, oh, you owe us $12,000. I was like, 12 grand. I was like, for what? And she's like, well, you didn't pay this invoice, this, and I was like, what? And I looked back through it and I didn't have those in my files at all. So here it was, you miss
That's
a
not
week
your fault,
here.
Joe.
Well, no, 100%. But like,
That's not your
then I
fault. You
was
should
like,
not have to pay that.
shoot. But it was like weeks worth of goods on a truck. And so, yeah, I just realized like that's how business owners can get so far in the weeds is you don't pay this one, you don't pay that one.
Next
thing you know, I mean, 12 grand is like probably a great scenario. Some business owners, they get $300,000 in debt, 900 grand in debt, and it happens so fast. So that's why I think having really tight financials, having accounts payable, cash flow statements, knowing your P&L, knowing where your money is at all times is so critical.
So critical. That is really, really good advice there. Yeah, I love the trend there from like 0 to 1 all the way into 10 here. So before we dive into our fan question, let's just ask one more question. One to be restaurant owner is like listening to this, who like doesn't love food, that's listening to this podcast, who doesn't love some sort of food. Feel like, okay, maybe I do want to turn my food passion into an actual business. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to that person?
Don't be fooled about the food truck thing or the pop-ups. They do not make money. They're great for marketing. They're great for testing the market. They're great for going out there and kind of starting off really small, that lean startup, start a pop up, maybe do a food truck for a short period of time if you have to, but they're not profitable. And I think a lot of people in restaurants who want to start off, they're like, oh, I'll get a food truck. And there's like this, like love or this like ideology that it's going to be some like romantic story. And it's a ton of work and it doesn't make money. So brick and mortars are the way to go. And location is so crazy key. So if you can find a second generation restaurant, and we look at traffic counts like crazy. So look at the numbers. Because if you have a hot restaurant that's in a weird place, for the first year when you're hot and new, you can get people to go out of their way. But eventually convenience wins. So you want to be on really busy streets where people are passing as they get to the highway. They're coming to and from home from work. They're passing your place. It's easy to get to. That would be my advice. Like, go after that.
Nice. That is really, really good stuff there. Let's get into our Fan Blitz questions here. And listeners, if you want to join on world-class entrepreneurs like Joe, who's doing $15 million a year in revenue, email us at podcast@upflip.com. We'll get your questions answered. But Joe, ready for our last 5 here?
Yeah, let's go.
What's one restaurant chain you'd never compete with because they're just too good?
Ooh, Chipotle. They're like the purple squirrel. They're at like a 30% profitability. It's insane. And literally, they're just so busy. That's a tough one. They're so unique as far as like their metrics. Yeah, can't even come close.
I like it. Dine in or takeout, what's your honest preference when you're not working?
Oh, dine in all day long. The food's just so much fresher. Like pizza is a great category where everyone just gets pizza to go so much. Go to a pizza place, sit there, get a pitcher of beer, get the pizza when it's right fresh out of the oven. Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss. And that's coming from an Italian that knows good pizza as well. What's the most overrated food trend in restaurants right now? Let's not do the food truck, just in restaurants. What's the most overrated trend?
I feel like these cheese pulls are so overrated. Like there's
cheese
a lot
bowls.
of like cheese pull. A cheese pull where like a cheese stick and they're like, oh, look at this cheese pull. It's mozzarella. Of course it's going to have a pull to it. What are you talking about? Like what you do with any mozzarella cheese?
I love it. Next one here. If you had to eat one fast food item for the rest of your life that isn't your own, what would it be?
Ooh, fast food item. Probably Five Guys French fries. They
I like it. That's
really nail those French fries.
That's a good one.
They do a great job there.
What's one restaurant rule you think every diner should know but nobody follows?
That you are also responsible for the good will and fortune of the experience. And what I mean by that is that you're not supposed to just show up and then the experience happens to you. You need to take part in the experience. Like talk to your server. Where did they grow up? Do they live in the neighborhood? Are they a college student? What do they got going on? What's their favorite thing in the restaurant? Talking about why do they love that item so much? Add to the goodwill and vibes of the restaurant and like the things going on. It's not just one-sided. It is both customers and a restaurant to come and create those good vibes.
Good vibes. That's awesome. Well, Joe, this has been a Good Vibes podcast. I have appreciated you so much coming on here. I really love the conversation from 0 to 10 million. So appreciate that a ton. If someone's like, oh gosh, Joe, I need to learn more about you, where can they connect with you and where can they, of course, check out some of your amazing sandwiches at?
Yeah, we're at Fry the Coop all over the internet. Instagram, we monitor our DMs like a hawk. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can just hit us up, DM us at Fry the Coop on Instagram. And so many restaurateurs all over the world reach out and, we'll connect. And I talk to people in London, Australia, like South America, Brazil. I just talked to somebody from Brazil. So I'm always willing to help out and anything I know and I share, I'll help you. I am a true believer all ships rise with the tide.
Listeners, that was a great episode with Joe. 3 quick takeaways for you. Number 1, to get from $0 to 1 million, get a publicist. I love what Joe was talking about, specifically about how that helped him grow his company. Look for a publicist early on. Number 2, have lofty goals. They've put a goal for $200 million in revenue. While they didn't get there, it was audacious and made them think way bigger on how they can actually attain big goals. Then number 3, great service, great product, great financials. Those are the 3 ways to get to $10 million in revenue, and every great restaurant company needs it. Amazing episode here with Joe. If you guys are enjoying this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcast. It helps us get more amazing entrepreneurs like Joe onto the show. We will see you next Monday. Joe, thank you so much for your time today.
Love UpFlip. Thank you. Honored to be here.